Right, Mr. Krishley, I do want to take your thoughts on whether this decision has united the Democratic camp. But for now, let's also get our correspondent Susan Tehrani into this conversation. Now, Susan, after that shaky and uneven performance of Biden at the debate in Atlanta, sources and reports say that Trump camp had already started preparing for a face-off of Trump with somebody else, and now that there is a Trump versus Harris face-off potentially, how do you think the Trump camp is preparing and responding to this?
So the Trump camp had anticipated something like this. And the reason I say that is because attacks against Kamala Harris became noticeably more and more with each passing day in the last week or so. And immediately when President Biden endorsed his vice president, the ad was ready to go on the part of the Trump camp against Kamala Harris. Hearing from them, they say that they anticipated this, and it doesn't ultimately matter who's on the ticket for the Democrats, because what matters are the policies, and they are going to be going against the policies of the Democratic Party. But you can't underestimate, as we saw in the debate between former President Trump and President Biden, that performance matters, and that is going to matter. How Kamala Harris is going to fare against Donald Trump in a debate is yet to be seen. It's also, despite the fact that many Democrats have already rallied around Kamala Harris, you hear a lot of silence and this deafening silence from someone like Nancy Pelosi, Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer. And while they may ultimately come out in support of Harris, some say that they're being very careful as to not to crown her right away, considering the fact that, they're making this switch after the primaries so close to the convention, and not to mention November as well, and at least giving the appearance that, the field is open if anyone else wants to step in.
Right, Susan, just to add up to what you said, Trump earlier said, and he rather thinks that Harris is no better than Biden in 2024 rematch. And the latest poll also shows a neck-and-neck fight between Trump and Harris. But coming to you, Mr. Krishley, the point you made there earlier of unity within the Democratic camp. We had earlier perhaps witnessed how there were divisions within the Democratic camp regarding Biden's candidacy. And now with Biden stepping down and endorsing Harris, even though there are divisions regarding Harris's potential nomination as well, do you think that the Democratic Party has united, especially with the gap between Democratic elites and donors reducing at this point of time?
It certainly appears that way based on the evidence of today. And I think it is an important point, as was just made, to recognize that this is not an automatic coronation of Kamala Harris. And I think that the party is wise to at least go through a process of inviting other people to step forward and compete for the nomination. I believe Senator Joe Manchin, who was a Democrat and is now registered as an independent, announced his intention to run for president today. Some of the other possible contenders, such as Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona, or Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, Governor Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan, and others who've been mentioned, this would be an opportunity for them to step forward if they wanted to compete for the nomination. But instead, and of course, Governor Gavin Newsom of California, another leading contender. And instead of stepping forward to compete, I believe all of them have announced their endorsement of Kamala Harris. So while it is not, a coronation by the party elite, so to speak, which I think is a good thing, it just looks like the party is coalescing organically in support of Kamala Harris.
Right, Mr. Krishley, we'll have to wait and see if Kamala Harris actually turns out to be the party's Democratic camp's nominee going forward. But thank you so much, Mr. Krishley and Susan, for joining us on the show with your insights. We'll, of course, be tracking with you, Susan, very closely as to what happens next in the United States of America. But thank you so much for being here with us on the show.